I never thought I'd be that woman. You know the one. The cliché. The wife who gets a glow up and ditches the good, steady husband who adored her before the transformation, only to come crawling back when the glitter fades. But here I am, Ilara, 33, staring at the blank screen of my phone for what feels like the 1000th time today, waiting for a text from Julian. He won't text back. I know he won't. He hasn't replied to a single message in months. Not since the last one. And, honestly, I can't even blame him. I can't blame him for any of it. It all started last year. I'd fallen into this deep, gray funk. My job in marketing was eating me alive. The kind of stress that wakes you up at 3 a.m., your heart hammering against your ribs, convinced you've forgotten something catastrophic. Julian, being the impossibly supportive husband he was. God, it physically hurts to use the past tense. He suggested I try working out. He said it would help with my mental health. He'd gone through something similar, a bout of anxiety before we got married, and he swore the gym had saved him. At first I scoffed. Really, Julian? The gym? That's your grand solution? But I was desperate. I was drowning and willing to grab onto anything that floated, so we started going together. Julian had been in decent shape for years. Not one of those ridiculously chiseled guys you see flexing for Instagram, but healthy, solid. He had a kindness in his build, if that makes any sense. I'd always been what my mother gently called curvy, which was her polite way of saying chubby. And Julian never seemed to mind. He always told me I was beautiful, and I believed him. I believed him because of the way he looked at me. Like I was the only thing in focus and the rest of the world was just a soft blur. Those first few weeks at the gym were brutal. Utter humiliation. I felt every eye on me, judging the chunky girl huffing and puffing on the treadmill, my t-shirt sticking to my back. But Julian was my shadow, my shield. He'd stand next to me, encouraging me in a low voice, showing me how to use the machines without looking like a complete idiot. He never made me feel small, not once. Then his schedule got crazier after a big promotion. He was working late, traveling more, so I started going alone. And that's when I met Sloane. Sloane was a fitness instructor, a human sunbeam in Lululemon. She was all high ponytails and boundless energy. She convinced me to join her high-intensity interval training classes. "You've got a fire in you, Ilara. We just need to give it some oxygen," she'd chirped. 3 months in, I started noticing the changes. My jeans felt looser. My face in the mirror, it had angles I hadn't seen since college. People at work were commenting, "Wow, Ilara, you look amazing. Have you lost weight?" The more my body changed, the more my attitude did too. I felt powerful. Is that a weird thing to say? Like for the first time in my life, I had absolute control over something. The gray fog of my depression started to lift. I had more energy than I'd had in a decade. I was actually excited to get dressed in the morning, trying on clothes I would have never dared to even touch before. Julian noticed, too. He'd watch me getting ready for work, this quiet little smile on his face. The kind of smile that said, "I'm so proud of you." He started initiating sex more often, which was nice, but something felt different. I was different. I started going out more. Sloane invited me to these fitness group happy hours. Suddenly, I had this whole new social circle. A circle of people who only knew the new me. Not sad, chunky Ilara who used to stress eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's after a bad day at work. Men would buy me drinks. They'd flirt. Their eyes would linger. And between us, I ate it up. I was starving for it, and I hadn't even known. Julian started noticing that, too, but not in the same proud way. We'd be at a mutual friend's party, and I'd catch him across the room, watching me talk to some other guy. He never said anything, not at first. But I could see it in the set of his jaw. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Did that stop me? Nope. If anything, it made me push the boundaries more. It ignited a defiant, ugly little spark in me. Hello. I'm still the same person, just in a better package. You don't get to be jealous now. How stupid. How incredibly, fatally stupid. Home life started to change too. I was busy, you know. Gym in the morning, work all day, sometimes another class or a happy hour after. Who had time to do dishes? Or laundry? Julian started picking up my slack, quietly, without complaining. But I could see the questions in his eyes when I'd stumble in late, smelling of wine and cheap perfume. Where were you? Who were you with? Are you still the woman I married? Then there was that night. God. I can still feel the fabric of the dress I was wearing. A slinky, emerald green thing I never would have dreamed of wearing a year prior. We were at a work event of mine. And Declan was there. Declan was a consultant our firm had hired. Tall, sharp suit, even sharper smile. He'd been flirting with me for weeks. Nothing had happened, but I wanted it to. I craved it. Julian saw us talking. Declan's hand was on the small of my back, a casual, proprietary gesture, and I didn't move away. I leaned into it. I laughed too hard at his jokes. I touched his arm when I spoke, and Julian just watched from across the room. He had a look on his face I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was something so much worse. Disappointment. It was the look of a man watching something beautiful shatter. The drive home was silent. The air in the car was thick, suffocating. Finally, just as we pulled into our driveway, Julian turned off the engine and spoke, his voice unnaturally calm. "What's going on with you and that guy, Ilara?" "Nothing," I snapped, the defensiveness immediate. "We work together, we're friends." "Didn't look like just friends," he said quietly. And then the venom came out. The ugly, twisted words I can never take back. "Oh my God. Are you seriously jealous? This is what you wanted, isn't it? You're the one who pushed me to get in shape. Remember?" The words hung in the air, a poisonous lie. Julian had never, not once, pressured me about my weight. He had suggested the gym for my soul, not my body. He just stared at me, his face pale in the dim glow of the streetlight. He didn't even argue. He just absorbed the blow. After that night, things got tense. Cold. I started staying out later on purpose, not answering his texts. I'd come home to find him asleep on the couch, having waited up for me. I'd get annoyed when he'd ask where I'd been, twisting his concern into an attempt to control me. Looking back, he was just a husband worried about his wife. But in my head, he was a ball and chain, holding me back from my fabulous new life. I started scrolling through social media, a truly toxic habit. I compared Julian to other men. Why didn't he dress better? Why didn't he have a more exciting job? I had transformed myself, and there he was, the same old, steady, dependable Julian. And a thought, a terrible, insidious thought, began to grow in my mind. I think I've settled. That thought got louder with every guy who slid into my DMs, with every compliment from a stranger. When Julian, in a last, gentle attempt to save us, suggested we see a marriage counselor, I completely lost it. It was like he'd accused me of a crime. We were in the kitchen, and I remember slamming my glass down on the granite countertop. "A counselor? For what?" I yelled. "Maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is that I've just realized I can do better than you." The look on his face. "I will see it in my nightmares until the day I die." It was like I had physically struck him. But I didn't stop. The poison was flowing, and I couldn't stop it. I kept going, saying all these horrible things. How I'd settled for him, how I was only with him because I didn't think I could get anyone else when I was heavier. I didn't even know if I meant it. Not really. I was just drunk. Drunk on this new attention, addicted to how it felt to be desired by anyone and everyone. But in that moment, I convinced myself it was all true. And Julian, he just stood there and took it. He didn't fight back. He didn't yell. When I was finally done, breathless and shaking, he just asked, his voice a hoarse whisper, Is that really how you feel, Ilara?" And God help me. I said yes. A week later I filed for divorce. The look in his eyes when he was served the papers. I pretended not to care, but it haunted me in the quiet moments of the night. Still, I pushed it down. This was my moment. My time to live the life I deserved. I moved out immediately, into a chic little apartment downtown that I could barely afford. New body, new home, new life. I blocked Julian on everything except email, telling him to only contact me through our lawyers. I was so cold. So businesslike. I remember he called me maybe 20 times that first night. I was out with Sloan and some of the gym crew, celebrating my freedom. I didn't answer once. They didn't know the full story, of course. Just that I was leaving my marriage to find myself, or whatever other garbage I was spouting. Sloan kept buying me shots, telling me how brave I was. And the worst part is, I started to believe it. Like I was some kind of feminist hero for walking away from a perfectly good husband who loved me unconditionally. I even posted a cryptic quote on Instagram about outgrowing relationships, with a selfie of me looking thoughtful but sexy. It got over 200 likes. Julian's best friend, Kyle, texted me after seeing it. He called me heartless. I blocked him too. Those first few weeks were a blur of manic possibility. I downloaded dating apps. I started talking to Declan more at work. I bought new furniture and posted new chapter photos. I got highlights in my hair. I was creating this whole new identity, hot, single Alara. Meanwhile, our divorce proceedings were moving forward, and I was making things as difficult as possible. I wanted half of everything, including his savings from before we were even married. My own lawyer kept trying to rein me in, but I was out for blood. I wanted to win. I didn't even know what the prize was. Declan asked me out properly about a month after I left Julian. Our first date was at a trendy, ridiculously overpriced restaurant I'd always wanted to try, but Julian thought was a rip-off. Declan ordered expensive wine, complimented my dress, and touched my leg under the table. It was exactly what I thought I wanted. We ended up at his sleek, minimalist apartment that night. And the whole time with him, I kept making these mental comparisons. Declan's apartment was sleeker than our cozy home. Declan's job title was more impressive. Declan's body was more toned. But Declan didn't ask how I was sleeping. He didn't remember that I take my coffee with 1 cream, no sugar. He didn't look at me the way Julian did. Like he could see all of me, my entire history, my fears, my joys, and not just the packaging. Still, I doubled down. I started posting photos with Declan within weeks. I knew our mutual friends would see them and tell Julian. I wanted him to see. I wanted him to know I had upgraded. I wanted it to hurt him. I think I wanted it to hurt him because despite all my bravado, there was this hollow feeling growing inside me, a cold draft in the center of my soul, and I refused to acknowledge it. 3 months into our divorce process, we had a mandatory mediation meeting. It was the first time I'd seen him in person since the day I left. I walked in there ready for battle. My hair was perfect. I was wearing my most expensive outfit, my armor. But Julian, he looked good. He looked calm. He'd gotten a haircut, lost a little weight himself, probably from the stress I'd caused. He was polite to me. He even smiled at the mediator's lame jokes. Meanwhile, I was a wreck inside, my hands shaking under the table, my voice tight. I expected him to fight me on everything. But he didn't. He agreed to most of my outrageous demands with this quiet dignity that made me feel so small, so petty. At one point, his lawyer whispered something to him, and he just shook his head and said, loud enough for me to hear, "No, it's fine. She can have it." They were talking about our wedding album, the one I had demanded just to be spiteful, knowing he was the sentimental one who would want to keep it. In that moment, I felt like the lowest form of life on the planet. After the meeting, I caught up to him in the parking lot. I had this sudden, desperate need to know he was hurting, too, that I wasn't the only one in pain. "So, you're really okay with all this?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked at me for a long moment, his brown eyes unreadable. No, Alara. I'm not okay, he said, his voice even. But I'm going to be. Then he got in his car and drove away. No drama. No begging. No tears. And for some reason that devastated me more than anything else could have. That night, Declan canceled our plans last minute. A work emergency. I sat alone in my expensive, empty apartment, scrolling through old photos on my laptop. Photos of Julian and me. There was one from 3 years ago, at his parents' anniversary party. I was heavier then, wearing this blue dress I'd never fit into now. But it wasn't my body I was looking at. It was the way we were looking at each other. Like we were the only two people in the universe. I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way with Declan, or if I ever had. A sudden wave of panic washed over me. I called Declan, needing some kind of reassurance, some kind of anchor. He didn't pick up. I called again an hour later. Still nothing. So I did something I'm not proud of. I drove by his place. And I saw her. Another woman going into his building. She was gorgeous. Model thin, younger than me. I watched them hug in the lobby before the elevator doors closed. I cried all the way home. Not because I loved Declan. I didn't. But because everything I thought I wanted, this shiny new life, it was all turning out to be so empty, so fake. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. Julian didn't contest anything in the end. At the final signing, his lawyer handed me an envelope along with the papers. Julian asked me to give you this, she said. Inside was a short, handwritten note. I hope you find what you're looking for, Elora. I really do. No anger, no bitterness. Just kindness. A kindness I did not deserve. I sat in my car and sobbed for an hour. My thing with Declan fizzled out a few weeks later. I confronted him about the other women, and he just looked genuinely confused. I thought we were casual, he said with a shrug. You just got out of a marriage, didn't think you wanted anything serious. The thing is, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. My new dream life was a nightmare. Dating was an endless parade of guys interested in my body but not in me. My work suffered. Even the gym, my former sanctuary, didn't feel good anymore. Every time I went, I just remembered that Julian was the one who encouraged me to go in the first place. About 6 months after our divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Julian had moved, gotten another promotion, and joined a hiking club. He sounded happy. Meanwhile, I was spending my Friday nights alone, watching our old favorite shows, drowning in regret. That's when I decided to call him. I was desperate, lonely. I hadn't planned what to say, so when he actually answered, his familiar hello, sounding so foreign and so comforting at the same time, I just started crying. Through sobs, I told him everything, that I'd made a huge mistake, that I missed him every single day, that no one would ever love me the way he had. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. Finally, he spoke. Elara, he said, his voice gentle but firm, unyielding. I'm sorry you're hurting, but there's no going back for us. Please, I begged, my voice cracking. Just meet me for coffee. Just talk to me. No, he said, and the finality in that single word was like a door slamming shut. I needed to talk 6 months ago. You didn't want to. After he hung up, I started texting him. First, long apologies. Then, reminiscing about good times. Then, desperate explanations about how I'd changed. When he didn't respond, I got angry, sending him accusatory messages about how he never really loved me if he could just throw it all away. His only response, after dozens of my frantic messages, came through late one night. Please stop contacting me, Alara. This isn't healthy for either of us. But I couldn't stop. I was spiraling. I began messaging his friends, asking about him. I called his parents, who had always loved me. They were polite but distant. His mom's voice was filled with a sad resignation. Julian's doing well, dear. I think it's best if you let him move on. The sadness in her voice made it clear. I was no longer the daughter-in-law they had adored. I drove by our old apartment building once, then twice. Then it became part of my regular route home from work. I found his hiking meetup group online, and I joined, showing up in brand new, expensive gear, hoping to accidentally run into him. He never came to those meetups. I found out later he'd left the group after the organizer warned him I had joined. I was becoming someone I didn't even recognize. Desperate, obsessive, pathetic. But I couldn't stop. In my warped mind, if I could just get 5 minutes with him, I could make him see. Make him see that we belonged together, that I'd made a terrible mistake, that I was sorry. Then I heard he had started dating someone. Kyle, his best friend, let it slip. I had cornered him at a party I wasn't technically invited to. "Look, Alara, you need to back off," Kyle said, his expression a mixture of pity and frustration. "Julian's finally happy again. He's seeing this really nice woman. Don't mess this up for him." It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Another woman? Already? It had only been 8 months. The idea of Julian with someone else made me physically ill. I found her on social media easily enough. Her name was Clara. She was pretty, in a natural, unpretentious way. Not as fit as me, not as polished, but her smile, it was genuine. There were photos of them hiking, their heads close together, looking at something off camera. She'd captioned one, "Best tour guide ever." And then I did the worst thing yet. I messaged her. I'm not proud of it. I told her I was Julian's ex-wife and that we were working on reconciling. That he was confused and not over me. I suggested she back off if she didn't want to get hurt. She never responded. Instead, Julian called me that night. I had never heard him so angry. His voice was cold steel. "Don't ever contact Clara again," he said, the words sharp and clipped. "Don't come by my apartment. Don't join my groups. Don't ask my friends about me. It's over, Alara. It's been over for a long time. She's not right for you," I whispered, my voice small. "You don't get to decide that anymore," he replied. And then, the final blow. "If you keep this up, I will get a restraining order." The finality in his voice finally broke through my delusion. This wasn't a temporary separation. This wasn't a break we'd come back from. Julian had moved on, completely. And I was just the sad, crazy ex who couldn't let go. After that call, things got worse for me. Friends started avoiding me. Tessa, who had been my confidant, stopped returning my calls. I was drinking more, working less. My boss called me in for a performance review. I almost lost my job. One day, about a year after our divorce, I was at the grocery store. And I saw them, Julian and Clara. They were in the cereal aisle, his arm around her waist as they debated what to buy. They looked so comfortable, so easy, so normal. Julian was laughing at something she said, a deep, genuine laugh I hadn't heard from him in years, not even when we were happy. I ducked behind a display of potato chips, my heart pounding. I watched them. They worked as a team, checking things off a shared list on her phone. They looked like Julian and I used to. Before I got fit, before I got selfish, before I threw everything away. As they headed toward the checkout, Clara spotted me. I saw her whisper something to Julian. He visibly tensed. He looked over. His eyes met mine for a brief, agonizing second, and then he deliberately turned away, guiding Clara to a different checkout line. It was a small gesture, but it said everything. He wouldn't even acknowledge me anymore. I was nothing to him now. A stranger. A threat. I left my half-filled cart in the aisle and ran to my car, sobbing like my world was ending. Because it was. The world I had foolishly destroyed. That night, I got drunk alone and sent him one last, long message. Part apology, part accusation, part desperate plea. I poured out everything. The next morning, blurry-eyed and hungover, I saw he'd responded. Just 2 sentences. "I forgive you, Alara. Please seek help and move on with your life." It wasn't what I wanted, but it was what I needed to hear. He forgave me, but he didn't want me back. A few weeks later, I heard they had gotten engaged. The news came through a mutual friend. "Are you okay?" she asked carefully. "No," I admitted, the first truly honest thing I'd said in a long time. But that's not Julian's problem anymore. I wish I could say I had some miraculous turnaround after that. That I found myself, found true happiness, found someone new. But real life isn't that neat. I'm still alone, still regretting what I threw away every single day. Julian is married now. I saw the wedding photos online. He looked happier than I had ever seen him. His parents, who once loved me like a daughter, were beaming beside him and his new wife. My apartment feels emptier than ever. The body I worked so hard for, the body that I thought would bring me everything I ever wanted, it just feels like a shell now. Sometimes I have this insane thought. If I gained all the weight back, would he want me again? As if that would somehow restore the person I used to be, the person he fell in love with. My therapist says that's not how it works. Yes. I finally started therapy. Too late to save my marriage, but maybe not too late to save myself. She says I need to stop defining myself through Julian's eyes, either through his love or his rejection. That I need to figure out who I am without a man validating my existence. It's hard work. Some days I still wake up reaching for him in bed. Some days I still draft messages I will never, ever send. But slowly, very slowly, I'm accepting it. There are consequences to our choices that can't be undone. Sometimes, I'm sorry isn't enough. Julian has his new life. A life that, by all accounts, is happy and full. And in my darkest, most honest moments, I can admit that he deserves it. He deserves Clara, who presumably loves him as he is, not as a stepping stone to something better. And me? I'm not sure what I deserve. But I'm trying to build something new from the ashes of what I burned down. It's harder and lonelier and more humbling than I ever imagined. But it's mine, with all its regrets and hard-earned lessons. The messages have stopped. The drive-bys have stopped. The social media stalking has mostly stopped. Not because I've healed completely. I haven't. But because I finally truly understand that you can't force someone to love you again. Especially when you were the one who stopped loving them first. If I could go back and tell that version of myself, the one intoxicated with attention and new possibilities, one thing, I'd say this: the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. But I can't go back. None of us can. We can only go forward, carrying our regrets, hoping to do better next time. If there is a next time.